Hi, Betsy Lane here with Usborne Books and More to share with you what I'm calling books for kids who love school. But depending on how you look at it, they could also be books for kids who need some help in school, perhaps. So it just all depends on how you decide to look at it and what you decide to look for. I want to start with math. So some kids love math, some kids struggle with math. And if you type math into the search box on the Usborne shopping site, you're going to come up with a bunch of options. And again, depending on what your child needs, it could be math helped, like with multiplication tables. We have a wipe clean multiplication book, or maybe your kid loves math and needs something challenging. So you might find this, the logic puzzles book, and we have other things in between. But for example, this book, lots of different logic and math type thinking questions. This one just happens to be something having to do with geometry. The picture is matched with a number, and then at the very end you have to figure out the number that would go along with this picture. This is kind of like a logic grid here. You have to figure out which friend goes with which kitten, more just puzzles and games that require deeper thinking. So again, depending on how you look at it, our math books could be help or they could be an extra challenge. Similarly, we have some great writing books. This is Write Your Own Adventure Stories, suited or intended, I should say, for around 10 years old and up. But again, depending on your child's needs, this might be better if your child is a little bit older and struggling with writing and needs something to encourage their writing. Or maybe your child is a little bit younger and is a fabulous writer and needs something to challenge them. We also have My First Story writing book, which is meant for a little bit younger. We also have Write and Draw Your Own Comics. But this book is great. At the beginning, it starts to help your child plan out their story. It talks a lot about planning a story and the different elements in a story. And it always gives some story idea words at the bottom. I like this book because it gives a lot of guidance at the beginning, kind of a little story starter, and then a couple of key words to help the story move along, introduce a problem in the story, help the story get solved. And as you continue, hopefully improving and getting better with writing, it backs off just a little bit as you move on in the book. So here, it gives a tip about starting the story, but as you move through, it's not giving you as much for finishing the story by the end. And the farther you go in, the less and less it prompts you with the writing. So great one for someone who loves to write or maybe someone who's struggling to write. We also have some great books for any art lovers. This is my very first art book, intended for around age 6. What it does in this book is introduces you to a style or a type of painting or artist, and then it gives you some tips and ways that you can kind of recreate that style of art on your own. So this happens to be using drawing with pencil and paper. It shows you a drawing by Rembrandt and then some tips for how to draw. This is Degas. And then using chalk. So just great. Here's using salt in your painting then. So just a great look at some early art for younger kids. We also have books about art and artists specifically, and then books for how to make and do some of your own art. So type in art in that search box and you're going to have tons of options. Last, I want to share with you 365 science activities. And there are truly 365 experiments or things to do in this book, most of which can be done with things that you have lying around at home. I also want to point out this book because it's a really important skill for children to learn how to follow directions step by step. So even if your child isn't necessarily super into science, this is a great one to have just to start practicing that following directions skill and following step by step. So this is how to make paper, kind of recycle and make your own paper, and it tells you the things that you're going to need and the step-by-step directions. So this would also be a great one in the classroom. With my students, we would kind of look through if we knew we were going to be indoor recess for a week or so just due to the weather. Plan out an experiment, gather our materials, and just day by day kind of do a little bit at a time. Making a windmill or what are they called? Pinwheels. And so just some super separating ink. That's always interesting. So just some great things that you can do at home, fun in the summer when you've got, a lot of time going on. So just a great book just for some science background and also for that following directions skill, which is so very important. So I highly suggest this one. And again, if you love science or your child loves science, type science in that box and there's a ton of options for you as well. I hope you saw something that you or your child will love.